up, guys? My name's Will, and I just wanted to give you a little rundown of the stereo system I installed in my 2017 Ford Focus ST. It's the first system I installed in a newer vehicle that requires a line output converter. I'm used to installing, the head unit with the RCAs that go directly to the amplifier in the back. Also the first system I installed an amplifier for the door speakers. If any of you have a Focus ST, you know how terrible the stock sound system is. This was actually the ST1 model, so no stock subwoofer. So I had the Kicker L7 12-inch Q class. It's 900 watts RMS paired with the Kicker CXA 1200.1 amplifier. 1200 watt RMS Kicker amplifier to run the sub. I have the LC7i line output converter, and I also have a dual amplifier. Not the best, but it does work. It's 100 watts RMS by 4 channels at 4 ohms. And yeah, I'm not an expert, so not saying that you should do exactly what I did. If you're not sure, contact a professional, have them do it, but I'll show you what I did, and maybe you can get some ideas from there. Alright guys, so here's a video showing the inside of the hatch. I have the back seats down just so you can see all both the amplifiers and the line output converter as well. Here's a subwoofer. It came with the prefab box, and right behind it are the amps and the output converter. Could be a little bit neater, not too bad, but definitely could be a little bit neater. There's the Kicker 1200 watt RMS amp. There's the LC7i, and there's the dual amp. Now I spliced into the speaker wires behind the factory head unit. I used the posi twist connectors and just basically ran speed wire. So the 9 wire, I didn't use the remote wire since I grabbed the power wire from elsewhere, but I ran the speed wire from behind the head unit back to the output converter, and from the amplifier ran another run of speed wire back to where I cut the factory speaker wires, and basically ran it to the speakers. So from the head unit, the speaker wire goes back to the output converter RCAs to the amplifier, and then speed wire back to where I cut the wires, but the other side to where they connect to the speakers. I first was running 2 separate power wires from the battery back here. Didn't really have good connections on them either, so I was chasing voltage issues. I just went ahead and did it the right way. Got a just got 1/0 OFC, 100% OFC Crutchfield wire, and ran that to a fused distribution block here, you can see. And then I just ran the 2 power wires to both amps. Also ran the ground distribution block, so you'll see the ground wires going to the ground distribution block with the 1/0 100% OFC Crutchfield wire. And that's actually going to the seat bolt, and it's working just fine. I did have it to the chassis. I didn't like the 1/0 going to the chassis. It's kind of hard to get a bolt on the other side of underneath the chassis, so I just went ahead and went with the seat bolt. I'm running so if you notice, I don't have the remote in because this has the GTO. So I just have the power running from the fuse, I believe it's F85 up front, back to the 12 volt constant for the line output converter. And then I just have the ground running to the ground distribution block right there. And I have 2 18 gauge wires. These are all 18 gauge wires for the LC7i power and remotes. But I have 2 18 gauge wires running to both amps from the remote out of the LC7i. That way it turns both amps on. And yeah, I'll show you up front. Okay, so here's the passenger side of the Focus ST here. And if you look, can't really see any wires, which is very good. But yeah, actually you can see some up there, but nobody ever sees that. unless you're looking from underneath right down here. But basically the fuse F85's under the passenger side underneath the glove box. There's two push pin type things that you pull off, and then this little cover comes off. I used a add a fuse from local auto parts store, and you just basically take the fuse out that was in there, put in the add a fuse, get another fuse that is rated for whatever you're pushing your power to. In my case it was 2 amps for the LC7i, 2 amp fuse, and yeah, you just run that to the back. Now I did have to take the glove box out. Definitely is a necessity to get the big power wire through the grommet that's also back underneath the passenger glove box as well. That did take some time there, but was able to get it done. And I'll show you under the hood next. Alright, so here's a under the hood shot. You see the big 1-aught power wire probably sticking out red. Probably should have some Tessa tape or some type of covering for the heat, especially right here by the intake. So far though, it's fine. I have the fuse holder mounted to the top of the fuse box lid, and that's just with double-sided tape. It's not going anywhere. I also, on top of the factory ground for the battery, I ran 1-aught OFC crutch-filled wire also as an extra ground to the factory battery. I should ground the engine to the chassis and the alternator. I should ground that as well, and also do the upgraded power wire from the alternator to the positive of the battery. Plan on doing it in the future. I don't see any voltage drops, so I'm not sure how soon I'll do it, but if need be I can. Yeah, that's pretty much the engine bay there. I have the larger H7 Agm battery. It fits in the stock location, and I was also able to fit the front part of the battery cover over it also. You have to take like some clips out of the bottom. There's tutorials online for that also. But yeah, it's kind of like a capacitor for me. Just a bigger battery for the alternator, and it seems to work very well. So yeah, one thing to mention that I forgot, you do pull the factory head unit out. It's not that hard. There's tutorials online how to do it. I had to use a pry tool right here to get it to really pop out. It is difficult once you get all the screws and everything out to get it to come out. So I used a pry tool right here, and it popped out. After you pop it out, I basically cut the speaker wires right behind the head unit at the harness, and ran the speed wire back to the LC7i, and then from the amplifier to the other side of where I cut the wires, which go to all the speakers. So I didn't run any new speaker wires to the speakers. Just use the factory wires. They're only 18 gauge. Should probably use 16 gauge with the power that I'm putting to them, but I've read that it's okay to put up to 100 watts RMS through the 18 gauge. Not saying you should, but that's what I'm doing. Also, with at least with my 2017 Ford Focus ST, I have this little voltage gauge that plugs into the 12 volt, I guess you used to call it cigarette lighter. But basically with the newer Ford Focus STs, or the 2017 at least, it has what's called a smart charging system for the alternator. So the computer controls the alternator's output, so it's not always fully putting out 14 volts. Basically it likes to charge whenever the engine's decelerating, like engine braking, and that's to help with fuel economy, power, so you're not putting load on the motor at all times. So sometimes my voltage drops to 12 volts, and that's how the car is designed. It hasn't caused me any issues with the Kicker 1200 watt amp or the dual amp. So I'm just gonna keep running it like that. And I haven't seen it drop below 12 volts either. So just some things to keep in mind there also. All right, here's a view from the cockpit here, the driver's seat, but still need to get the knob for the LC7i. It's the ACR one. Still need to get that mounted. I think I'm just gonna mount it right here with some better double-sided tape. The same kind that I used for the fuse holder up front isn't holding it up there good, so maybe get a stronger tape to hold that up there. But yeah, that's how I control the bass on the LC7i, kind of like a bass knob. I did install tweeters and all 4 door speakers. The tweeters, you have to use the posi, well, you don't have to. I use the posi tap. Basically, it's a product that just splices into the factory wire without having to cut it. I did have to cut behind the factory head unit for the speed wire, but I didn't have to cut this. I just used the posi tap. But yeah, I have Kicker tweeters in there, and I have Kenwood full range 6.5s for the doors also, and the dual amplifier is powering all that. But yeah, can't see any wires. I ran the speed wire on the left side. I ran the power wire on the right side, and also the ACR one. I ran that on the right side as well, and also obviously the 18 gauge power wire to the LC7i I ran on the right side. But yeah, it looks pretty good. No complaints except for this just hanging in here. Definitely have to get that mounted soon. With the stock head unit, wouldn't hurt to get an equalizer. Now, some like streaming apps, like some music streaming apps, have a built-in equalizer that you can use. I've actually been using the one on the streaming app that I have, and it works very well. I can get by with that. I don't need to buy an equalizer. I'll just use the LC7i and go straight to the amplifiers. But it is something to consider. Definitely something to consider. I guess also with respect to the tweeters, it's important to note, I was always reading online that you'll need hot glue, basically some way to mount the tweeters to the factory location. The Kicker tweeters that I got, which I'll try to link below, basically they had rings on the outside that literally snapped right into the factory location. I didn't have to use hot glue. Again, just the posi twist to splice into the factory wire, unplug the factory tweeters, so the harness is still dangling in there, but it's fine. Use the posi twist to the new Kicker tweeters, and they sound great. And here is what the stereo system looks like with the seats up. It actually looks very clean with the seats up. Back up a little bit, get a good view of everything. Come closer. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I don't know. Let me know. What do you guys think? Alright guys, so earlier I mentioned I was having some voltage issues. Now that was just issues that were caused due to my negligence basically. This was the first stereo I installed in a while, so when I was crimping the terminals onto the power wire for the first setup that I had, when I was running 2 power wires instead of one big 1/0 to a distribution block, I didn't have the terminals crimped good, so it wasn't a good connection at the battery. My amp kept going into protect mode. Definitely learned a lot from that, so I got a hammer style crimper. Not as good as the hydraulic. Well, I guess that's arguable because it's worked very well for the 1/0 that I have now. But just something to keep in mind, the little things that can get you. Also, I was having an issue when I would slam on my brakes. my system would shut off, and I was very confused. But then I realized that my floorboard was sliding back against the power, or no, I'm sorry, yeah, the power wire for the LC7i, and pulling it out actually was not the best thing to happen. So I addressed that, got everything good, and yeah, so I mean, you'll definitely have issues. You'll definitely, I'm not saying you'll definitely have issues. I definitely had issues, and but that makes you understand it better, and you definitely learn from it, and you can take what you've learned and apply it to projects in the future. Alright guys, so that's the stereo system in my Focus ST. If you guys are into sound, you like to hear good loud, crystal clear music, I would suggest upgrading your stereo system, especially if you have a Ford Focus. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comment section below, and if you like the video, hit the thumbs up for the like, and yeah, signing off.